All right, for our first project, we're going to create two different pieces that are going to interlock in an assembly, and then we'll be able to lay out our drawing based on our dimensions, and we'll have a couple different drawings of the assembled version and the individual parts as well. So the first thing we're going to do is create this part, which looks like a cross, and then a piece that is sticking out. Then we're going to create the opposite of that so that they interlock together, and then we'll assemble it. So a couple things. We're going to use the size of our actual cubes in class, which are 3/4 inch cubes, or 0.75 by 0.75 by 0.75. So whenever you add these numbers together, 0.75 plus 0.75 is 1.5, and then 1.5 plus 0.75 is 2.25. So any dimensions that we use are going to be one of these three. So if it's 2 blocks high, it'll be 1.5 and so on. So when you first start OnShape, the first thing we want to do is come up here to create a new document. Then we're going to name our document last name project 1. And go ahead and hit create public document. This is your main screen here, and I should have run you through kind of how everything works by now, but if not, these are your work planes, front, right, and top, and those are all how you view an object. You can also relate those to this view cube in the top right, and you can rotate it based on whichever direction you want to look at. For our first part, we're going to create it on the top plane. And anytime you need to create a 3-dimensional part, you're going to start with a 2-dimensional one. So I'm going to come up here to sketch, and I'm going to sketch a new drawing on our top plane. So I'm going to click on anywhere, as long as you see this highlighted in orange, we're going to click on top and you should see sketch 1. I'm going to rotate so that I can view straight on to that top work plane. And once I create that part, it simply looks like a 3x3 cross. So we're going to create that bottom layer shape, and then we'll add at the end that piece that sticks out that helps it interlock into the other one. So you have a couple different ways that you can create that cross, but the easiest one is going to be coming up to this corner rectangle, and I'll click the arrow down, and I'm going to use the center point rectangle, and it's going to help keep all of our stuff aligned. So I'm going to click center point rectangle and move over to our origin point. You can think of that like a 0, 0 point on a graph. And I'm going to click on the origin point and move my mouse out into the right. You can move it to the left, doesn't matter, right? The only thing that is changing is our height and width, and you can see that those numbers are increasing and decreasing, but I could just simply type in what I want by clicking, and you'll see that 1.478 is highlighted right now. Now I don't want to click on it. If I click on it right now, I'll create a new rectangle. What I want to do is just simply type in that box. So I'm going to make this 0.75 wide, right, 1 block wide, and then I'm going to make it 3 blocks long. So 2.25 is our dimension for that, right? Dimensions simply mean measurement. So I have my height of my cross here. Now I need to make my width, or my horizontal rectangle here. So with the center point rectangle still selected, I'm going to click on my origin point and move over and just create another one. So I clicked on the origin point, moved my mouse out, clicked again, and then I can type in my dimensions. So I'm going to make this one 2.25 by 0.75 and hit enter. All right, so we have a nice shape here, right? And it is a 2-dimensional shape. So if I rotate my view, I just hit the green checkbox to close that sketch, right? And I can come out, rotate my view so that I can see exactly how this is laid out, right? So I'm going to pop this 2D sketch into a 3D part by coming up to the top left here where it says extrude right next to the sketch button. And whenever you click extrude, that means it's going to push whatever you select, so I'm going to select all these rectangles. It's going to push through that shape and create it into a 3D part. So I'm going to change my depth. Instead of 1 inch, I need to make that 0.75. And the reason that I need to make it 0.75 is so that it is 1 block tall. And we need to make sure that all these dimensions are correct so that once we put the other one together and we assemble it, that they will match up. So I'm going to change that depth to 0.75 and hit the green checkbox. So we have almost completed our first part. The next thing we need to do is add that piece in the center that's sticking up so that it interlocks. So once we have a part, we can create an additional sketch on any one of these faces. I can also create a sketch on any of these planes as well, right? So I'm going to create a sketch, but this time I'm going to select the top of my part. And that'll create a sketch on the top up here instead of where this part begins on this top plane down here. So I'm drawing now on this actual 3D object. I'm going to rotate my view so I can see straight down on that work plane again. And I'm going to select my center point rectangle once again and my origin point. So I'll click, move my mouse out, and I don't want to connect it. If you click here, it's going to constrain those, and although they are the correct size, get used to just typing in your dimensions so that you know they are correct and you're not relying on other dimensions to make sure that they are. So I'm just going to click and I'm going to type 0.75, hit enter, and 0.75 again. And that should draw your square or cube here in the center. So I'm going to hit the green checkbox and hit extrude, rotate my view so I can see, and select my newly created sketch. Now again, depth is default to 1 inch. We want to change that to 1 cube, right, 0.75, tall, and hit the green checkbox. Right, so that is our first part. The last thing we want to do is add a little bit of color to it because we're going to create 2 different parts in this. And with those parts, once we put them together, we want to be able to tell which one's which, right? So I'm going to hit P on my keyboard, and that'll hide my work planes, right? That's over here. It just gets rid of them temporarily. If I wanted to bring them back, I could just hit P again on my keyboard. That's the keyboard shortcut, right? But let's get rid of them so we can just see our part a little bit better. Now to add color to anything on here, we can go over here to our appearance panel. It's the 3 circles on the right-hand side, and click it and open it. I'm going to double click on the color here and just select any color you'd like. So let's go with green. I'll hit the green checkbox and close my appearance panel. All right. At this point, you are going to want to share it with the class. So in order to do that, come up here to share. And we want to change our share options to individuals to teams. Change it to teams. And then whenever you click on your search names box, you should find 21-22 engineering or whatever year or class you're in currently. Right. So I'll select our team and I want to change it from can edit to can view. Right. If you leave it on can edit, that means anybody in the class can edit your files. So make sure you change that to can view and go ahead and hit share. I'm going to close this and now we can begin our second part. So if we need to create a new part, this project 1 document will house all of our files. So think of this almost like a folder instead of a single file. So I'm going to hit the plus on the insert element. And I'm going to create a part studio. Right, so I created basically a whole new 3D environment that we can create a different part on. Right, and then we'll be able to come at the end and assemble them together. So once we are ready to draw our second part, we can go ahead and grab a new sketch, click on our top plane, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing, but instead of adding, we're actually going to subtract. So we're going to create our part as if it is a larger cube or rectangle, and then we're going to subtract from it what we need to interlock. So what I mean by that is we're going to create a center point rectangle. Click on the origin point and move your mouse out. Right? I'm going to click and draw this 3 blocks long and 3 blocks tall. So I'm going to type 2.25, enter, and 2.25. Right? And we're going to end our sketch there. We can extrude this square out 2 blocks tall, right? Because our first part was 2 blocks tall as well. It just had that one piece sticking out in the center, right? But it is 2 blocks tall overall. So I'm going to change this depth to 1.5 and hit the green checkbox. Now what this allows us to do is draw on here and use the extrude feature. Instead of adding a part, we can subtract from existing 3D material here. So I'm going to create a new sketch, but this time I'm going to select the top of our rectangle here. So I'll click on it, rotate my view so I'm looking straight down, and I'm going to create the exact same cross that we did in the first part by using the center point rectangle. Click, drag out, click again, 0.75 wide, 2.25 tall. I can do the same thing going horizontally. Nope, sorry, that's width. 2.25 wide, 0.75 tall. All right, so we're going to subtract that material by editing our sketch, selecting extrude, and then once we click on each of these, we rotate our view out so we can see. Once we are adding our material, we just want to change from add to remove. So once we remove it, you can see the material disappears off of the 3D object, and all we have to do is change the depth from 1 inch to 0.75. So I'll hit enter, and you'll see that depth comes up a little bit from where it was, and that's 1 block. So I'll hit the green checkbox, and you can see, right, we're almost there. The only thing we're missing is where our interlock block comes into play, right? So we need to create one last sketch, and then we can remove the material from the center. So I'll create a new sketch. This time I'm going to select inside our new part here, rotate to the top, just click there. And just like we did to add that part in the first one, I'm going to use center point rectangle, click on the origin point, and dimension it 0.75 by 0.75. Hit enter, end the sketch, and this time we're going to extrude. Right, whenever you first put or click on that square, you'll see that it tries to add. Now we do want to remove, so you want to select remove and just change that depth to 0.75. Once we hit the green checkbox, you should be able to rotate, right, and see that that part has been removed. I'm going to hit P on my keyboard to hide my work planes, and then change the color to something other than what we already had. So we had green on the first one. We'll do like a tan or something opposite on this one. Right? Doesn't matter what color you choose. You can choose any 2 colors as long as they are different. Right? Now this works based on a cloud system. So I have your share file. You do not need to share again. I have all this information. Right? It updates automatically. Now, we have 2 parts here, Part Studio 1 and Part Studio 2. It's good habit building to start to name your files so that once you have a project that is, a bunch of files, then you will be able to kind of differentiate which tab here is which part, and then which part is labeled, right? So what we're going to do is label these parts and our tabs so that they correspond to the part itself. So we're going to name this one top. So you can do that by right-clicking part 1 here and go to rename, and we're going to rename this to top. And we're going to rename this tab down here, right-click, rename, top as well. We're going to do the same thing on this tab. We're just going to name it bottom. So right-click Part Studio 2, rename bottom. Part 1 here, right? Rename bottom. All right, so what that allows us to do once we go into our actual assembly is we'll be able to insert our parts based on names. So I'm going to hit insert, and I'm going to insert the bottom first, right? So I'll just click, and then I'm going to insert the top. So I'll click on the top, and then it drops it into our assembly. So I'm going to hit the green check, and you can see that it places those two parts kind of on top of each other. So I'm going to move this green one over. It's a little laggy in the assembly document, but I'm going to move this one over, and we want to insert this piece into this one. Right? So there's a couple different ways that we can do this. All of our tools up here will allow us to match them together, and we can add movement and all kinds of stuff that helps us show that these two go together. The first thing I like to do is orient my parts so that they are in the direction that they need to go. And what I mean by that is if I click on this part, you'll get an axis of all different movements. So I can move that up and down, I can move it forward, backwards, and I can move it along that third axis, kind of diagonally, right? But I actually want to use one of these axes to rotate our part so that it's flipped upside down. So I need this piece to be facing down. So I'm going to grab this circle with the line through it, and I can rotate that. We want to rotate it 180 degrees. So I'm just going to type it to make sure that it's exact. 180, hit enter, and then click off. So now we have the piece oriented in the correct way. Now I just need to lock it into place so that we can't move it. Now, most common thing that students try to do is just move this over here. Say, okay, maybe if I move it, close enough, it'll look like it goes together, right? Well, you'll be able to just click and move these at any time. So we need to fix those into place. By doing that, we can use a fasten mate, and what that does is it locks those pieces wherever you click on them to lock them in place. So I'm going to use the fasten mate, and once you select the fasten mate, it just asks where do you want to connect this. So if you can click on any one of these dots and connect to any one of these dots, right? So what we want to do is find two that make sense to go together. Just like you would in real life, where would maybe this dot go, right? So we're going to say, where does the edge of the piece that goes inside that other piece belong? So I'm going to click on that dot right there, and I'm going to make sure that blue line is facing out. That blue line, we want to match those two together, and that's how you make sure that they are in the correct location. So I'm going to hit that point, and then I'm going to rotate out. And I need to find where it goes. So I'm rotating my part. I want to look inside here, and I want that middle one to match up to the bottom of this. And I know it's a little hard to see, but you want it on the same side so it doesn't spin around. But it should be that point should match up with that point if everything is the correct size. So whenever I click on that, it should jump together, right, and match up. So I'll hit the green check box, right, and I can rotate around, make sure no points are sticking out. This bottom piece isn't sticking out, right? Everything lines up perfectly, and that's how I know my dimensions are correct. All right, so I can just close that, and that is a completed assembly. Right? So there's your first two parts and your assembly all in one. All right. Next time we will create our drawing for this, and then we'll be able to finish this project up. Good luck. If you need any help, let me know.